Hello everyone. Welcome to the True Crime Archives by Chacha for newcomers to this channel. If you love true stories, this channel was made for you. We post true crime stories they thought they buried every day. If this interests you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you always get the latest content. Your support means a lot. Don't forget to hit the like button. As I've told you before, the like button is a simple gesture for you, but for me it's something huge because it helps YouTube know that people like my content and shows it to more new people. So please don't forget to support me by hitting that like button. Welcome guys, now back to the story. The room stayed eerily silent, the impact of his words settling in. Daniels moved uncomfortably, his eyes looking toward the floor. Richard took a step nearer to the podium's edge, his tone sharp but controlled. Respect is not a choice. It's the basis of what we do as law enforcement. Without it, we fail. Not just each other, but the community we serve. He allowed the silence to continue for a moment, watching the officers fidget under his stare. This morning, some of you laughed at what you believed was just another helpless man being humiliated. But let me remind you, everyone who enters those doors deserves respect, whether they are wearing a badge or not. His words sliced through the room like a knife. No one dared to move. Richard let the silence persist, his stare unwavering. The tension in the room was tangible, each officer keenly aware of the weight of his words. Daniel shifted again, his discomfort obvious as sweat beads appeared on his forehead. But Richard wasn't finished. "I understand that change is challenging," he said, his voice steady but filled with authority. "But let me be clear, there will be no tolerance of behavior that disrespects the dignity of any individual, whether they are a colleague, a civilian, or anyone else." He stepped down from the podium, walking slowly toward the officers. His presence was commanding, yet his tone carried controlled intensity. "Officer Daniels," Richard said, stopping just a few feet away from the man. Daniels jumped, his earlier bravado completely gone. "You," Richard continued, meeting his eyes, "represent everything that's wrong in this department. When you spat in my face, it wasn't just me you disrespected. It was the badge, the oath, and the community we promised to protect." Daniel stuttered. "Chief, I didn't know." "That's exactly the issue," Richard interrupted, his voice sharp. "You didn't care to know. You didn't pause to think before you acted because you assumed that man standing before you didn't matter. And that assumption is why this department has lost the trust of the people it serves." The room remained silent, every officer frozen in place. Richard turned his attention to the rest of the group. What I witnessed wasn't just one man's error. It was a culture where bullying and prejudice are not only tolerated but encouraged. And that stops now. He stepped back toward the podium, his voice rising slightly. "I've spent my career fighting for justice, not just in the streets, but within the walls of departments like this one. Change isn't simple, and it won't happen overnight. But I promise you this, as long as I'm chief, this precinct will operate with integrity, respect, and accountability." Richard paused, letting his words sink in. Then with a slight nod toward Captain Harris, he concluded, "Effective immediately. Officer Daniels is suspended pending an internal investigation. And for those of you who think this is just a minor punishment, think again. This is the first of many changes." Gasps spread through the room. Daniels' face turned crimson, his jaw clenching as he avoided the stares of his colleagues. Richard, unaffected, stood tall. To keep up with this series and even more interesting true crime stories that never came to light until now, hit the red subscribe button. Now back to the story. "This isn't about punishment," he said firmly. "It's about establishing a standard. If you're not willing to meet it, this isn't a place for you." He glanced around the room one final time, his eyes meeting each officer's. "If you're ready to do better, to be better, then we'll move forward together. But know this, I will hold you accountable every step of the way." The meeting ended with heavy silence, officers shuffling out of the room without their usual conversation. Richard remained at the podium for a moment, watching as Daniel stormed out, his face showing embarrassment and anger. The other officers avoided eye contact, their expressions ranging from guilt to quiet reflection. Back in his office, Richard sat down at his desk, exhaling deeply. He knew this was just the beginning. Years of established attitudes wouldn't change overnight, and for some, they might never change at all. But he hadn't come to Blue Ridge to make friends. He came to make a difference. The phone on his desk rang. It was Captain Harris. "Chief, I wanted to say, you handled that better than most would have," Harris said, his voice hesitant. "Thanks, Captain," Richard replied, "but the real work starts now. I need a complete review of Daniel's history on my desk by tomorrow. Complaints, incident reports, everything." "You've got it," Harris said before hesitating. "And Chief, I think you affected a few of them today in a positive way." Richard hung up, allowing himself a brief moment of satisfaction before diving into the pile of paperwork in front of him. Over the following weeks, the precinct was a different place. Officers who once laughed at Daniel's behavior now avoided him entirely, whispers of his suspension spreading through the department. Richard made it a point to walk the halls regularly, greeting everyone he passed, his presence a constant reminder of his leadership. Some officers embraced the change. Officer Reyes, a younger recruit, approached Richard one day, admitting that she'd been complicit in the toxic culture out of fear of retaliation. "I want to do better, Chief," she said sincerely. "That's all I ask," Richard replied, his voice kind but firm. "It starts with you, but not everyone was willing to change." Daniels filed an appeal against his suspension, claiming unfair treatment. Richard held his ground, standing firm in his belief that accountability wasn't optional. The department's review uncovered a series of previous complaints against Daniels, ranging from excessive force to inappropriate comments. His appeal was denied, and Richard made it clear that the days of hiding misconduct were over. Despite the progress, Richard knew the road ahead would be long. Discussions about implicit bias in community relations were met with mixed reactions, but he remained determined. Each small victory, a recruit speaking up, an officer reconsidering their approach, was a step towards something greater. One morning, Richard attended a community event where he met a young boy who shyly approached him. "Are you really the chief?" the boy asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "I am," Richard said with a smile. "My dad says police don't care about us," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. Richard crouched down to meet his gaze. "I can't change the past, but I promise we're working to do better," he said gently. "And if you ever need help, you come find me, okay?" The boy nodded, a small smile breaking across his face. It was moments like this that reminded Richard why he had taken the job in the first place. By the end of his first year, the precinct was far from perfect, but it was undeniably different. Officers who couldn't adapt were gone, replaced by recruits who shared Richard's vision for a fair and respectful department. The community, once skeptical, began to see signs of change, a renewed effort to build trust and bridge divides. Richard stood in the precinct's main hallway one evening, watching as officers filed out after their shifts. The laughter and camaraderie felt different now, not at someone's expense, but genuine and inclusive. He knew there would always be challenges ahead, but for the first time he felt hopeful. Change was never easy, but it was worth every fight. Like, comment, and subscribe to the True Crimes Archives by Chacha, where every crime has a witness, and every truth will be told for more true crime stories. See you in the next episode, and thanks for watching. Hello.